Okay, I'm sorry about one thing I needed to explain and I forgot to talk about the generations. The number 50 in God's, if we're talking about what are generations. The number 50 is what God determines what a generation is. So every 50 years comes along a new generation from the time of Adam and Eve. If anybody is aware, Israel just had its 50th birthday from the Six Day War, which is when there was an attempt to take back Israel from Palestine, to destroy Israel and restore Palestine, I should say, in which so many miraculous things took place to where the Israeli army was given to them. Now, one thing I've learned, and this is kind of why you can tell that back in 1917 there was a miracle working to get Israel back in place, is that when the Ottoman Turks occupied Israel back in that time, there were leaflet drops sent down to warning of an impending attack from, at the time it was the British. The leaflets were actually told incorrectly in Arabic to get out of Israel because Allah says this judgment is coming. They were trying to actually say that it was that they needed to prepare for the attack of the English. Well, so that's why when they arrived, they got to Israel. They didn't even have to fire a shot, and that goes to show you how God can do things without anybody getting killed. And so at that point, once that whole thing was established, then the UN came along, and what was funny is they were actually used for the first time ever to actually vote in a state. Well, after the Six Day War, Israel was officially established as a nation. And so they hit their 50th year if they actually celebrated it in the month of Liar, ironically. Now, we all know how God works. He told his kingdom would return, but yet it was established through. But we know that right now the kingdom of Israel is still under the deception of the liar because they still don't believe the Messiah came. They still argue with Christians about their belief, and they still go by the wrong time frame as to when Jesus was born to when he. So when the when the time frame switched to where it's now that he's been to before Christ from BC to AD. Because it's now now it says that all these things, it talks about how, if you look in the Bible, it's about all the things that would pass before this generation would pass away. And what they mean by pass away is the church pass away. Here's the thing: everything prior to the arrival of the man of sin, lawlessness, has taken place. The most recent event that actually was not really caught yet is this rebellion. If you look in the book of Thessalonians, it talks about the rebellion that would take place in the rebellion against God. Well, if you notice, in various parts of the world, Christianity is under attack where they don't want people. Anytime you talk bad about Muslims, or you talk bad about any atheists, or you say anything negative, you're condemned. You can't read it. You can't take a Bible to school. You can't pass out Bible verses. You can't put the Ten Commandments on display. None of this stuff can take place. And so, because of this, that's what's keeping the deception in play. But yet, they're allowing people to do the satanic prayer, um, other things that they're allowed to do, and if you try to fight that, then they get angry. So basically, what you're learning, and it's kind of sad because we've gone through education for so many years, not realizing that the education was designed to divide us from God. That's why when you look at what you learn in school, it contradicts what you learn in church. There's a reason for that. Because the generation that now that's being raised, and this is why so many young people are going astray and why so many children are being attacked, is because now that God has been completely removed from um, public things that are funded by the government, and why Donald Trump signed the executive order about religious freedom. You know, the evangelical church is convinced that, oh yeah, he just hooked us up. No, he didn't. It means now that you can't persecute anybody that worships any religion, including satanic worship, which completes the cycle. So that's why now it's going to get really interesting, because they're going to be throwing that in every Christian's face, any believer's face. Hey, you can't do that anymore because President Trump said that's not okay. We have to have tolerance. We've heard the Pope talk about tolerance. We've heard many people talk about tolerance. So we're supposed to tolerate the lie, is what they're basically saying. Because anybody who doesn't believe in it, we can't say anything about it. They have to let them be, which is the creation of the one world religion, where everything is okay. We're in a state of where it's like, hey, there's many different ways to get to heaven, which we now know the truth is the only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ. So that's what I'm saying. You know, we're at that generation. Every 50 years there's a generation, and if you look at the count since Jesus came, we're at that point where that generation is going to pass away. Anyway, love everybody. Take care. God bless and be safe.